Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another stellar edition of Shot of Nostalgia right here at the Turnbuckle Tavern. We're going live for episode 19, rolling through 1998 WWF. As always, I'm good old Mike Belcaster, back in the fold, finally here to relive some Shot of Nostalgia, and always with my host with the most.
Live from No Sales Studios at the ACEFIELD Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro, and it's so good to have you back, Mike Belcaster. We were lonely here. We had the picture of Sammy Guevara. What a beautiful selfie you guys took from your Las Vegas weekend. Believe it or not, we have not spoken on this show since then. And how are you feeling fresh off the heels of everything you accomplished in Vegas?
My goodness, it was a hell of a week out there. I was out there from Wednesday until the Monday. I came back, had family shit going on. Kids got me sick. It's all the fun that goes with life. But I'm doing good. I'm able to speak today. I got a voice. I'm living the dream, and I got to hang out with -1 and Sammy Guevara and the rest of the awesome AEW talent out in Vegas. So yeah, man, I'm in my prime. I'm ready to roll, brother.
So we're going to be going back in time, 1998, as you mentioned, and this is our third to last episode here in 1998 as we get ready for season 4. And we're going to be reviewing 3 events. We have a nice sandwich, a pay-per-view sandwich, if you will. November 9th Raw, the Survivor Series 1998 Deadly Games Tournament, and the November 16th Raw. And as you know, each week we're going to be reviewing 3 events in 1998. Hopefully you guys watch them. This is a pivotal event that we have been talking about for quite some time. Survivor Series 1998 Deadly Games has been one of those moments that we've been circling on our calendar. I'm not sure if it was the biggest event. I think it's our biggest, at least since WrestleMania 14 when Stone Cold was crowned. This is probably just as big, with Rock getting his first crack at being the world champion and turning heel after they had him as a white hot babyface.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Huge moments coming aboard. The Rock is just on a whole different level at this point than he was when we started doing this season. Super pumped to see it. Love it. Love heel. Very, very heel Rock. I'm excited for Survivor Series. This was one of my favorite Survivor Series to date. I don't think they've ever done it better. And yeah, man, it held up well. I'm stoked. It was such a good damn event of we get a lot of good shit here for Shot of Nostalgia this week.
So I was talking about it last week that only in the history of WWF pay-per-view, we've had 2 one-night tournaments for the WWF Championship, and one being WrestleMania 4, where Macho came out the champion over Ted DiBiase in the finals. And then, of course, this one where Rock went over Mankind in the finals with the submission. They did the exact same finish of the 1997 Screwjob. But my question to you is, how do you feel about one-night tournaments? Are they too much? Do you feel like they rush through the matches, or are you there for that?
I'm 100% here for it because it gives so much context, and you could literally throw this Survivor Series on and pick it up from the beginning to the end, follow the story all the way through. You don't need the previous context. You don't need the following context. This is a whole beautiful event in one night, one sitting. And you could, like I said, you could show this to your friend and they'd follow along instantly because you're like, oh, this is the tournament. This is how it goes. It sets it up. I love me a good tournament, man.
Do you have a preference, one or the other, WrestleMania 4 or this one? Because I was stuck in my head last week talking about it. Not sure. And I love both guys that win, too. It's good moments for the both of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just because Survivor Series falls more in line with our generation, our childhood, and everything. I think it's more favorable for me. And like you said, we had Mankind and The Rock in a screw job finish. Like you don't get better shit than that. And I know they've been playing the screw job card a lot this year and like kind of toying back and forth with it, but not 2 bigger characters in 1998. I think you could have gotten out of a main event for a pay-per-view, let alone a tournament for the world championship. Fucking stellar, man.
So we'll continue our conversation, of course, when we get our fix. But let's get into the happy hour and talk about what's happening in November of 1998 from Uncle Dave Meltzer.
Happy hour.
It's been too long since I heard that beautiful song, man.
All right, here we are, happy hour, the November 9th, 1998 newsletter. And the major story we're breaking down here in the great year of 1998 is a major stunner. And it's not Stone Cold delivering. It's not anything else, but political landscape has changed. Jesse Ventura was elected governor of Minnesota on November 3rd. Ventura made a victory speech at about midnight Central Time, winning an election where he was a distant third in polls until literally the day of the election. So I'm going to read you a little bit of the stuff as we go on, but Jesse the Body. I mean, I need to hear the impression. You do a great Jesse the Body Ventura impression, but I mean, the significance of this airs very, very reminiscent of the political landscape today. Not that we want to get into it, but this kind of set the tone for celebrities getting involved in politics where no one really thought he had a chance. And here he is being the governor of Minnesota.
Yeah, before I start parading my Jesse the Body Ventura impression out there, Monsoon, let me tell you about how I feel about Minnesota politics. Okay, no, Jesse was a trailblazer in the world of politics. It's celebratory inductees, if you will. He really got into there by knowing his people. And we talked about it a little bit the other day when we were going to try to record here. But yeah, Jesse he's a Minnesotanite. He's a Minnesotanite, brother. And let me tell you, he really works hard with the Minnesota people and tries to get things going. He's a big Vikings fan, but now he lives in the Bajas. But no, so good. But listen, this was a big deal. I remember talking about it in school. Like it wasn't like it was lighthearted and everybody was like, oh, this wrestler got in the office. It was a monumental moment, not just for celebrity talents out there to overcome just their, whatever they're doing, acting, wrestling, sports, moving into a political field. It was huge. But Jesse did it so valiantly. Not so much anymore. He's a little crazy. He's all over the place. He's out there. His Teslas are powered by the sun, Monsoon. Let me tell you, but it's so good, and it's so fitting because I've been on a Jesse the Body Ventura kick lately, and yeah, man, everything just kind of falls in line. It's beautiful. All congrats to Jesse for getting that Minnesota mayor elect.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the details of this. And what Meltzer says in here is the political infrastructure in Minnesota largely considered his candidacy a joke, but he was very popular among younger people who traditionally don't vote in elections as something as a protest candidate. So they talk about how he gained a lot of publicity and a lot of steam at the last week. But as far as our bubble here in pro wrestling, Ventura is believed at this time to be the only big name pro wrestler ever elected to a political office of this level in the U.S. He continues. Antonio Inoki served 6 years in the Japanese Diet, which is the equivalent to the Senate, and wound up in a major scandal, which at the time there was talk that he'd be impeached. Currently, Hiroshi Hase, a former Olympic wrestler who is a big star as both a wrestler and a booker in New Japan, was going to be a senator as well, and he's a well-respected one who's believed to will have a long and illustrious political career. Jesse Ventura, I mean, setting the stage for celebrity candidates. And again, we're not diving deep into 2023 politics because you guys can get that elsewhere. But I mean, this right here rings very true. And we hear, they say at the end of every flagship, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for president, so it wasn't possible in 1998. He was becoming the champion. Yeah. But it doesn't seem so far out of reach because Jesse Ventura did this. And it is another example of wrestling coming to the forefront, that you could see it. It was being considered a joke from the beginning until it wasn't anymore, until it was reality. And wrestling was literally involved in Minnesota government legislator.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And this was a time when people were showing up to Nitros with Hollywood for president. And, everybody's trying to swing something there. And Hogan was toying with it too. But I think it all benefited Jesse Ventura so well. And nobody knows bluegrass, blue collar people more than a pro wrestler such as Jesse the Body Ventura, so it works out so well. Yeah, I was very impressed. In retrospect, I'm more impressed. 11-year-old me didn't give a shit who was the mayor of Minnesota back in the day, so it's not like it mattered, but this was a huge deal, and it really did swing open doors for the future of not just entertainment politicians and all how they mingle and merge together. It's crazy.
Yeah, at the risk of getting too deep into it, if you guys want to check it out in the newsletter, there are some Minnesota citizens that pop in and talk. They're kind of ripping on Dave for being critical or was running for this campaign because they were considering him completely separate from the wrestling. He said, and this person wrote this letter, and I'm not going to read from that because we have so much other stuff to cover in 1998. This person was essentially saying, we don't look at him as a professional wrestler. We thought about him as a fresh voice in our political landscape that we needed for our governor's seat, someone who differently. I mean, he talked about legalizing marijuana. He also talked about legalizing prostitution, and he had a different type of voice than a normal politician would. And I think that at the very least rings true in 2023, potentially next year in 2024, when, you know, the big office is up for grabs too. So 1998, man, this was a big deal.
Yeah, wild to think about it in retrospect, like how far Jesse's fallen to, because now it's all about the aliens and that all the conspiracies out there. But yeah, so awesome. Like, I mean, he was a fresh voice, and that's the thing. People, I mean, akin to anybody who's elected in the last 10 years, they wanted fresh, new opinions, ideas, and all that stuff, and that's what you would hope out of politics, right? I mean, in the long run, I'm not trying to get too political here, but you want somebody with a fresh outlook on things instead of being somewhat by the book all the time. So yeah, all the power to Jesse the Body Ventura, man. Legalize marijuana and all the alien
we could do a full shot nostalgia on just his career, but we'll definitely talk about him again.
I wish I was prepped better, because I would have read some of these letters in Jesse the Body Ventura's voice. Like, he's just a fresh voice for the younger generation. Let me tell you, Monsoon. But yeah, so damn good, man.
All right, well, floating back into the wrestling war on Monday nights, there's a real dichotomy when it comes to looking at where WCW wrestling is today. Meltzer says few would disagree with the assessment that WCW, though not grooming new stars, and over-reliance on the fading Hulk Hogan is finally showing weakness when it comes to being a TV and pay-per-view draw, and storylines that are largely making no sense. They've lost ground, and for the first time can be labeled as trailing WWF. He continues about the ratings. WWF beats WCW more often than not on Monday. WWF is beating WCW in comparing the pay-per-view buys of all the last 3 months, which is no surprise in August or September. But in October, considering WCW is presenting Halloween Havoc, and the Hogan vs. Warrior match is a huge surprise. So he continues diving deep into all the specifics of the ratings and the writings on the wall. WWF is pulling ahead, and they're not really going to look back. I'm sure there'll be an ebb and flow for quite some time. Last week, I spoke at length about the Hogan Warrior rematch at Halloween Havoc, the disaster, the missed fireball, just the disaster that was that match. Quickly, your thoughts on the Halloween Havoc match with Hogan and Warrior. Do you remember that? I talked about it last week. I'm a huge Warrior Hogan WrestleMania 6 fan. That was one of my introductions to being a fan. Yeah. I remember wearing that tape out from Mr. Video in Oakdale, New York, where I would rent it on days off, and had the Coliseum video on my VCR just constantly. But that rematch probably on paper seemed like a great idea, but it was a real symbolic gesture on WCW's end of where they were going, while you're getting fresh young talent on the other side.
No, 100%. I feel like if this would have happened in 97, it would have been a bigger deal, and it would have been a more impactful deal. I feel like the timing wise was just shit for WCW. I used to have the WrestleMania poster autographed by Warrior and Hogan way back when I was a little guy, before we moved out of our childhood home. But I'm right there with you. Biggest Warrior Hogan mark that you could possibly get. It did not deliver, obviously. Halloween Havoc, great aesthetic. The One Warrior Nation, loved the packaging WCW put on it, but I just felt it failed to deliver, much like the Piper Hogan feud in WCW, much like the Sting Hogan feud. Like they put all their ammo. They put all their ammo into the buildup for these, but not the delivery, right? And it takes away from the finish. It takes away from what we see the outlook of, and that's probably what shot him in the foot in the long run.
Yeah, so he did say, and he continued talking about how despite WCW struggling, they were doing well as far as ticket sales for the 1030 and the sale for the Nitro going in the Astrodome in Houston and the 1221 show in the TWA Dome in St. Louis. Moral of the story is WWF is not really running those big buildings yet. And we're still going to get the Georgia Dome show, and we're still going to get this Astrodome show in Houston. WCW is willing to take the risk and run these big buildings where it's commonplace now in WWF. But at the time, it would have never happened. We were still getting WrestleManias at these smaller arenas. Of course, we saw WrestleMania at the Fleet Center in Boston, which it's laughable. You could fit that in one section of the LA stadium that they ran WrestleMania in this year.
Yeah.
But WCW had that roadmap, and it felt like once they overtook WCW because they were mishandled, they overshadowed them and took their game plan and said, this is how you should do it. And they did it right.
Yeah, no, I mean, even like I always complain that like they don't do enough in Chicago for like WrestleManias and big shows like that, but the Allstate Arena's 12,000 people tops, like that's not that big of a number, maybe 15. You could fit that into, as you just so poetically said, you could fit that into a section in the LA stadiums or wherever the hell else they're running right now. The bigger pictures weren't quite there. I mean, we even seen 10 years removed from 1998 that were still running the Allstate Arena for WrestleManias. They don't do that anymore. They got bigger, better stadiums, grander things to put their showmanship into, as well as they should, right? Because they are such a massive product. It's wild to think about. It absolutely wild to think about.
Yeah, we're going to get WrestleMania 40 at the Lincoln Financial in Philly, where during this time, I think WrestleMania 15 is in Philly at the Wells Fargo Center. Just shows how different wrestling has become. And it's interesting because we talk about the health of wrestling in general and how it's healthier than ever as far as the full landscape of everybody's eating. We talk about that in wrestling tonight.
Yeah.
But as far as the risk of running these bigger buildings, it's not there anymore. It's guaranteed at this point. As WrestleMania has become an entity similar to the Super Bowl, where cities are bidding over it, clamoring over it, where they're incentivized to take it on, where back in the day, WWF had to figure out where they wanted to run and didn't have this flagship type of thing where it spawned all these other wrestling events. When WrestleMania 15 came to Philly, it was just WrestleMania coming to town, where not all the other wrestling, it's not the wrestling circus that it becomes nowadays, where the city gets taken over by wrestling. Completely different aesthetic. And you can thank the Attitude Era for setting the groundwork and the popularity for getting it there. But it's always just interesting to look at how things have changed.
No, absolutely. I mean, even going to Double or Nothing, I mean, the event was a week-long clusterfuck of all pro wrestling. GCW was there. There was a bunch of indies in the same neighborhood. I mean, they sold great numbers at the T-Mobile Arena. I know there's a lot of video going around with that one section, but it was a production section. Like, it wasn't
a hard
anything
section,
bad.
yep.
Yeah, and you're not seeing that on TV anyway, so it doesn't really fucking matter. But it just shows you how good wrestling is doing. And was doing. Like, you got so much to work with right now, and there's so much more room for the playground's big enough for all of us to play here. Like, let's just have fun and enjoy pro wrestling, right?
100%. And the last piece of this newsletter right here before we move on to the November 16th one is the World Wrestling Federation offered ECW a plug for its pay-per-view on the Heat show that led into the pay-per-view being Survivor Series, but ECW did not respond. Wow. We always talk about the working relationship between ECW and WWF. Only a few years prior, they had the ECW mini invasion on Raw, where we saw those guys, and famously Sabu jumping off the R and all that good stuff. Wonder why ECW did it. Maybe it just got lost in the mail. Like, I can't imagine that they wouldn't take him up on the offer to plug him on pay-per-view. Like, why wouldn't Heyman take that? So it had to be just one of those 100%. Miscommunications.
Yeah, no, free advertisement and Paul Heyman, those are two things that like are stuck together. I don't think I couldn't see him not taking advantage of that and be like, November to Remember is live right after Sunday Night Heat, brother. Like, so I that's very shocking to hear, man.
All right, so let's get to the November 16th, 1998 Raw, and I'm opening with this part, which is just baffling to read. Yokozuna worked several indie dates this past week in New Jersey and Maryland area, and Meltzer said he's said to still be gigantic. He's told people that he's never offered a spot to do a run-in for the Hall versus Nash match, but several in WCW insist was the case, and Hall was calling him up to try to convince him that it was an easy 10 grand. What probably makes the most sense is Yokozuna still has designs on getting back into WWF, and working for WCW wouldn't put him in a good stead with WWF, but WWF has said they want him only if he can get down to around 400 pounds and figure he's nowhere close to that today. We would lose Yokozuna not too long from this date. Unfortunately, one of the more talented big men in the wrestling business, sent the benchmark as far as WWF champions being that size. But just picturing in my brain Yokozuna working an indie date, I'm picturing like the Shindy poster where it's like shitty, everyone's in different lightings, and Yokozuna right in the middle. Of course, they're using his 1993 photo, of course. Yeah. And from New Jersey and Maryland, like I have to do my research and find clips of this to see Yokozuna, even though he's probably immobile, not able to do the things he was able to do. Just Yokozuna in an independent ring, that's got to be like, you have to go and find it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's insane to think about. But I mean, good for him for continuing to work, regardless of not having, the WWE status at the time. But it's insane, dude. I couldn't imagine going to my local gym for a wrestling show and seeing Yokozuna walk through the curtain. I would have been fucking shit my pants as a kid.
Yeah, Yokozuna is one of those guys that doesn't get really appreciated. And I think nowadays he's getting more of his flowers because of the Bloodline storyline, and people are associating him with everything that he's accomplished. And, you know, if you look at that run in 93 and him winning the Rumble and going to WrestleMania 9 as champion, of course, he loses to Hogan, who runs in after beating Brett. But that run as champion, I mean, I loved it. I mean, Yokozuna is one of my favorite WWF champions, working that big man style. It just sucks that it couldn't, you know, we see throughout history some of these guys that are bigger, which is the selling point, whether it's height or weight. That's one of the things with Yokozuna, that he just never could get past it. I mean, 400 pounds that's still being a very big guy. And if he's not anywhere close to that, you know, I don't know what his final weight was before his passing, but it's a shame, man, because to think what could have been with Yokozuna if he was still here today.
No, 100%, man. I remember when I mean, I used to be like 320 pounds, and like thinking about another additional 100 on that scares the shit out of me. So I don't know how he was as mobile as he was. I don't know how great, like, he was amazing for his size. His agility was through the roof. Kudos to him. Fucking absolutely insanity, man.
Well, if you look back at that WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 12, where he's there and he's just not moving around well. But yeah, I mean, I look at this the same way, like with Andre the Giant, where Andre's height was his to him, that was his ticket into being famous and putting food on his family's table. And you can imagine, not that Yokozuna wanted to be 500 pounds, but part of his allure was being this giant presence, and his larger than life presence was his weight. So I'm sure there was a piece of him that was just encouraged to continue to put on weight, and it just got out of control, and it was a snowball down a mountain.
100%, man. Listen, it's no easy recovery from anything like that. And yeah, it was a shame what happened to Yoko, but he was a goddamn talent, absolute talent.
So we have an issue with Stone Cold Steve Austin in the newsletter. It kind of popped up throughout this, and this is sort of the speculation that Meltzer has here. At press time, it appears the situation is stable and not all that different than usual. The biggest problem that they had was Bill Goldberg getting a role in the upcoming Jean-Claude Van Damme movie called Universal Soldier 2 that producers originally wanted Austin in. So the producers went to WWF, and according to what the officials said, told Austin they offered $55,000 for the role. WWF turned down the offer as being too low without ever consulting with Austin, and the producers and WCW signed Goldberg to the role for $250,000. So when Stone Cold heard about it, he was upset because no one asked him about it. So they're trying to do damage control because obviously Stone Cold wanted to have a say. And of course, World Wrestling Federation and their upper level management would have a say in if it can happen. But damn, this is a problem. As far as communication goes, they're filtering through these options for Stone Cold to get through the door of, you want to do this interview? You want to do this on this show? Do you want to go on Letterman? Do you want to go on Conan O'Brien? Yeah. So this probably just popped through someone's office and said, nah, that's too low. Get rid of it. And he could have gotten $250,000, and it pissed him off. He was ready to walk out of the company. Yeah, no, listen, it's probably the beginning of the stems of Austin taking his ball and going home, right? He probably was really pissed about it. But I mean, I don't call me crazy, but if I was shit out on a $250,000 acting gig, I'd be pretty pissed too. So more kudos to Austin for, not walking out, right? Yeah, so this was a miscommunication thing, and I just thought it was interesting because the star power of Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1998 is getting to the point where it's just as big as the company. And that's laughable to say now because the brand is the brand with WWE. They've become ESPN. They've become Disney. But at this moment, the Austin 316 logo is just as recognizable as the WWF scratch logo in 1998. That's what people have to understand. So he had a lot of leverage here. They had to make him happy. This is before they were able to have this abundance of riches where they were able to let guys go and go off the greener pastures if they don't like their booking. But I mean, I guess Rock's going to make them feel better about any of these tensions because they have two franchise players in the building at the same time.
No, 100%. And I just seen a video yesterday on Austin talking to Vince about his royalties for the Austin 316 shirt. He's like, well, Vince came and gave me a check, and man, what a check it was, like he made waves in that area beyond NWO merchandise. Like he was a trendsetter for getting people paid for their royalties for the merch, and he did a damn good job at it. Crazy to think, right?
Yeah, agreed. And we have Insane Clown Posse. We talked about them getting in the ring last week for the first time, and it's the only time they've had any matches, but they apparently quit WWF, and apparently they were promised a commercial for their CD on Raw. They didn't get it and left. And Meltzer said, huge loss, huh? So
Yeah.
ICP was with the Oddities. They were an undercard act, not even close to mid-card.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about them. It's they're fodder on this roster. It's not a big deal of them losing. They're forgettable. I look at them as a barometer of where we have some of these stars now in wrestling, where, you know, celebrity bar has been raised, where you can't come in and work like ICP. You got to be like Bad Bunny. Like that's where it is now.
100%. But I mean, ICP was at least putting in some kind of effort. I feel like that they took wrestling serious enough to where they opened up their own wrestling company down the line and all this stuff. Yeah, they were no Bad Bunny. They were no Logan Paul, not even a Mike Tyson on Dynamite yawning. But they were still decent enough to kind of lay their weight around, right? Like, but it's a shame more didn't come out of it, but I wasn't expecting much to begin with.
So moving into the November 23rd, 1998 newsletter, most of this is sort of talking about WCW and the mistakes they're making. And this opens up a lot of good conversation that we'll get into, but we'll talk at first about WCW at large. And Meltzer says they've seemingly lost sight of what the pro wrestling business is all about in a panic over the Monday night ratings. Even with that as the primary goal, WCW is falling further behind than at any time in the history of the Monday Night Wars, as the company is paying for its lack of developing new talent when it was on top and creating new storylines this year, when it was losing its grip. They're relying on the pat hen of tired old faces and suffering from the residue of a year of largely bad TV. So they talk about building towards Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, and not building on the younger talent. So where the good conversation stems from is the contracts that are coming up. And some of the names we have here, Mike Belcaster, are names that we love here. And looking through them, we have names like the Giant, only 27 years old. He is viewed by both companies as the modern day Andre, if promoted correctly. We also have names like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio Jr., and Chris Benoit. All those guys are free agents at the end of this year, where
Wild.
It's going to be all these guys, and it's going to be decision-making time, where you can look at what could have been the future main event, or should have been the future main event in 1998. While WWF is creating Triple H, while they're creating The Rock, you could have been pushing Jericho and Eddie Guerrero to that top level. And then I think if you did that, and I know it's all sort of following, it has to be booked the correct way, we could be looking at WCW still standing.
Yeah, at least still standing. Like maybe not completely ahead of the curve, not completely running the whole show, but I think it would have been beneficial for them to lean more on their younger talent, like a Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. I mean, look what it did for WWF once they acquired the talents. I mean, it pushed them to the moon. Chris Jericho's feuds with The Rock, Austin, Kurt Angle, you name whatever the hell he did, he was creating gold there, and complete missed opportunity by WCW and all involved on their end. It's a shame that the Radicals and Jericho didn't find the fit there. Even the Giant, Paul White, could have been money in WCW had they treated him like he was and gave him the opportunity to prove himself. It's insane. But I mean, as all dominoes do fall, I mean, gravity hit and they found their shtick in WWF, WWE, and bigger and better things came from it. So
yeah, looking through this, and there's more conversation I want to get through, but I want to make sure we organize it correctly. First in this is talking about the mindset with Triple H. And we know the star of the Triple H became, we know what he is now with the company. But it's interesting to read this here. Meltzer says there is a behind-the-scenes mindset in the WWF right now regarding Triple H, that he may have gotten as far as he can, as far as moving up the ladder, and doesn't have the working ability and the attitude to pass those higher on the ladder. There was a feeling the guys on top, such as Austin and Taker, would have been back by Survivor Series, for instance, with the same knee injury. And even that X-Pac, who's limited somewhat by his size, but is the best worker in the ring in the company, may have already surpassed Triple H as a single star of the DX group, even though Triple H is both bigger in promotion, where that usually matters a lot, and the stronger interview. He continues, however, it's doubtful Triple H would leave WWF based not only on the comments he's made, but because he's friends in WCW who are making huge money, far more than will likely be offered if WCW sends him an offer. So over the next year, WCW is in far more danger of losing proven stars than gaining them. That's crazy to read because, like, in this mindset, you look at Triple H, they gave him a lot. Of course, he was buried after the curtain call, and I think they're well past that.
Yeah.
But he's only a year away at this point from being the champion. He'll be champion August of 99. And maybe that's injuries. Maybe that's what they're trying to figure out. But Triple H becomes the fucking guy, and that mindset changes very quickly.
Absolutely. But I mean, Triple H also stood through all the bullshit, held his own, worked his ass off, no matter what, even when he was wearing crutches or in the wheelchair, like he was still showing up, doing shit every week. I think that's a lot to say for somebody of his stature. And then the fact that they lost so much steam out of him to call X-Pac better than where Triple H ever will get. That's so laughable nowadays because Triple H is running the fucking show. It's insane. And how far, like, no offense, X-Pac has done great in his life, in his career in these later years, but there was some rough patches during those like early 2000s, the late 2000s, and like shit got wild for him. To think about how nuts that is. It's just mind-boggling to me, man.
So it's interesting looking at the names Guerrero, Jericho, Malenko, Mysterio, and Benoit. And of course, we know they all wind up coming over. Guerrero, Malenko, and Benoit together, of course, with Perry Saturn as the Radicals a couple years later from here. Jericho will be the first one to jump ship. But some of the conversations, the same conversation we have today, and it's interesting to read from the perspective of 1998, way before a guy like Eddie Guerrero comes over or Chris Benoit. But Meltzer says, and this applies to everybody, Guerrero 31, who is really only about 5'6", would have his lack of height exposed by all those deceptively huge slugs Titan employs. And he says the quote, small guys Titan has pushed in the past are Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, who are both 6 inches taller than Eddie, and he'd be nearly a foot shorter than all the Godfather, DOA, Southern Justice that are all over the Titan roster, not even with the giant roles, let alone even being giving significant pushes. And he continues, he's enormously talented in the ring when motivated, although his work of late hasn't been up to the levels of previous years. And while he's a good interviewer at times, it's largely been in Spanish because he's struggling with Mike most of the year doing English promos. And also he says about McMahon, which we all know, McMahon is a long-established size mark, and as Taka Michinoku and Brian Christopher have shown, talent doesn't make a leopard change his spots. And Titan has an audience that has already been trained to a mentality that's hard to change, as noting smaller size good workers with Jarrett, Taka, Christopher have fared every bit as poorly in the ratings as DOA and Southern Justice. As unhappy as Guerrero is in WCW, his plight could wind up being worse in WWF. And then he goes and continues about Chris Jericho. We'll read that in a second. But your thoughts on the Eddie Guerrero comments? I mean, that seems accurate. If you would have told me at the time, even a couple of years when he first came in 01, he came in, hurt his shoulder, which is another tick in the wrong box for him, being injury prone. His debut tears his shoulder out. He's out significant time. All the stuff that Eddie overcame to be the guy and be the champion, beat Brock Lesnar at a pay-per-view. It's insane.
It is insane. It's wild to think about, especially when you compare it to like the Finn Balor, hurting his arm when he's in the Universal title picture and shit like that. Like,
and that was it for him too.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
No, I mean, that's it. He's with the Bloodline forever, or not the Bloodline, but you know what I mean. But it's insane to see how Eddie not only he's calling shit out, but he rose above all of that too and became this bigger, brighter, and grander character than he already was. I can't believe that people are shitting on it, like at this aspect. Like, guy was a star, he was built into it, and he got so much better over time to where he proved himself that he could be the number one guy for the company, and he did, and he worked his ass off for it, man. Absolutely wild.
Meltzer also talks about Chris Jericho, and he says a lot of great things about him, especially his interview and his look. But he says Jericho has potential to be a franchise heel like Ric Flair was in the Carolinas in the late 70s for WWF. He also talks about Benoit being the best worker in all of the country right now. Talks about his size, and again, reiterating the fact that, and I understand, you look at guys like Taka Michinoku, very talented, still working today. Brian Christopher was very talented in the ring. It's hard to imagine that work rate would take precedent, but as we know, over time, pro wrestling is pro wrestling. You want to have the best quality in the ring. And guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Benoit, Rey Mysterio, those guys are going to be the ones that shine if you put the light on them. And I think eventually those there for shock value, that Howard Stern level car crash type of wrestling we're watching today, that was going to get old eventually. And you need, at the end of the day, to rely on professional wrestling. And there wasn't a lot of them in-house that they could rely on work rate rise. And I think that's what really reset WWE for the future. And, you know, they went to the races from there. And of course, it was after WCW went under that a lot of these guys came over. But Jericho made the choice well before 1999 with that awesome promo with The Rock. And they knew what they had with him.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is like Benoit was, out of my eyes, in my opinion, Benoit was the least successful out of the group. He like going into it, and he proved them all wrong because he was so damn good in the ring that, like, undeniable. You know, you want to talk about going from unwanted or whatever Cody says, you know, undeniable to, or whatever. You get the point.
Undesirable to undeniable.
Thank you. There we go. I was looking for it. It was on the tip of my tongue, but he don't work for AEW anymore. So just, but yeah, so crazy that Benoit was able to even fighting above the reins of everything and become such a goddamn talent. And yeah, it just proves that in ring work does take you to the whole next level, man.
Yeah, and taking a risk on yourself. And I understand it didn't happen immediately. Chris Jericho was pretty much in the mid-card from the beginning, but then he was a main eventer not long after. But for guys like Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, they were put in the mid-card, the IC title stuff, the European Championship for quite some time until their number got called. And Benoit was challenging for the championship against The Rock in the year 2000. Never was going to win it. He didn't win his first world title until 2004. Same thing with Eddie. Eddie didn't win it until the build to WrestleMania 20. But as being top guys, they had their time in the sun where, you know, I understand that we can't see the WrestleMania 20 highlight anymore because everything that went down with Benoit.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was a big deal, not for him specifically, but for guys their size to be looked upon to end the anniversary edition of WrestleMania in the ring as champion. And for a guy 5'6.5" and a guy 5'8.5", that was earmarked that no matter how small you are, Rey Mysterio too, WrestleMania 22, walking out of Chicago with the goddamn World Heavyweight Championship. It's crazy that you have to just kind of, I guess, follow your dreams and stick to what you want, because no matter what, it can come true, because size be damned. You have to show your worth. And all these guys eventually got theirs in WWE.
Yeah, 100%. And look at the paths that it blazed for the future. I mean, you wouldn't have your Bryan Danielsons and your CM Punks and your Seth Rollins without these three guys going in there and fucking putting their shit out there. And I mean, I'll that's a hill I'll die on. I don't think we would have Roman, understandable, but like we wouldn't have these smaller guys being your champions, going after your Cody Rhodes. Even, I mean, Cody Rhodes is a laughable size compared to a Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. But that they ushered in this new era of, it doesn't matter how big you are, it's about how big your fight is. And I love that mentality for a spectacle like pro wrestling.
Yeah, and you can look at the top of WWE as far as guys that have an undersized type of look. Sami Zayn is not a big guy. Kevin Owens isn't the biggest guy. He's obviously not sculpted like the 80s wrestlers and the early 90s. Point is, I think they can thank guys that, as you said so beautifully, guys at the top of this card in WCW or didn't get to the top of the card, but these guys we mentioned, they're free agents. We didn't even mention Dean Malenko, who's the oldest of the bunch at 38 at this point. He would come over, never really get his flowers, and he is one of those guys that Dean Malenko, one of the best technicians in the world. I think if he was a little bit younger, like if he wasn't 38 coming into WWF during whatever year he came in, I think it was 2001, 2000, something like that, then we'd be looking at a completely different picture. But I think the fact he was 7 years older, smaller, he just never got a shot, but he was just as big as talented as all those guys. Yeah,
if not more talented. Like 100% agree with that.
All right, well, that's the newsletter. Let's get into getting our fix and talk about WWF Raw's War from November 9th, 1998 in Dallas, Texas. Let's get our fix.
Woo!
Get your fix.
All right, Belcaster, time to get our fix. We are from the Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas, as I mentioned, November 9th, 1998. Our current champs are as followed. Our WWF Championship is still vacated. 9/28, 1998 vacated because of everything that went down in the three-way with Kane, Undertaker, and Stone Cold. Our IC champion is Ken Shamrock. He won it back on the 12th of October. Our tag team champions, New Age Outlaws, won it back August 30th, 1998 at SummerSlam. The European champion is X-Pac, 10/18/98. Our light heavyweight champion is Christian, our boy Jay Rizzo, 10/18/98. And the women's champion is Jacqueline, 9/21/1998. And a lot of good championship contenders here. The WWF championship is vacated. And I have to do the research, but just from watching wrestling for a long time, I think from point A to point B, from 9/28/98 until the end of Survivor Series is the longest time they go without a champion. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Wild. No, I think you are 100% right. It's so wild to see. I feel like I missed so much since I haven't been on here, but like just going through the champions, I'm already like back in my groove. But yeah, I think this is the longest they've had without a working champ. Like it doesn't matter if it's vacated or not. They didn't have a program in place. It was just floating there. So it's insane, man.
So we rarely open up with just wrestling, and that's what we did on this episode. The Undertaker was taking on X-Pac. They didn't last long. Straight into the wrestling match. You're excited to get started. You just sit down with your chips and ready to watch. 20 seconds in, we get Kane. So, we get one kick combo from X-Pac to Taker, and then Kane appears 20 seconds in. He's inside the ring. Taker's holding up X-Pac, and next thing we know, Kane shoots a fireball out of his hand. He nails X-Pac in the face. This, to me, I took it as a complete shot at the missed October Halloween Havoc spot with Warrior and Hogan, because the fireball looked legit and the EMTs were checking on him. It looked legitimate, but I couldn't help but believe, especially looking at what was going on. They were like, okay, you guys are going to do the flash paper with the fireball that you fucked up. We're going to do it right. And we're going to do it in our opening match of the show.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, it was probably one of the better fireballs of the business that we've ever seen. So your point's proven, rock and roll, like 110%, man. But listen, for what it was a good angle to open up Raw. You still fucking building up on Kane and Undertaker feuding. It's good stuff, and Kane just throwing fireballs, man.
So when we come back from commercial, X-Pac's backstage. He's in a lot of pain. He's holding his face, and he's worried about his eye. And then we move to Mankind, who's welcomed by Vince McMahon. We know Mankind is the chosen one. He's the guy that they're going to be the new corporate champion, or at least we believe. We saw the Hardcore Championship awarded to him. The Big Boss Man and Vince's Stooges are back there with them. And Vince says to Foley, tonight's going to be as special as Mankind will defend your Hardcore Championship against Ken Shamrock. And he said if Mankind is going to be somebody, then he needs to look like somebody. And anyway, it looks like Mankind's going to be getting a makeover tonight. We're going to get him in that tuxedo, and they're going to shave him. Everything going on here. You can't help but feel bad for Mick Foley here, especially when you know he's about to get. I think even then you knew they were fucking with him, but even now that you know the end of Survivor Series, I don't know. It feels like bullying to me, but Mankind feels like all he wants is love, dude. All he wants is love.
No, and he was so easy to get sympathy for. Like this just helped it prove along and get better. Like the fact that they're churching him up, buttering him up, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna give you a new look," and then they shave him. They fucking put him in the tuxedo. Like it's so fitting, right? And like Vince, perfect corporation, like kind of gimmick, and like, oh yeah, like this guy is so disgusting that we have to shave his head. We gotta put him in a suit for him to become the champion. It's poor Mick Foley, man.
So we lead into another match here. It's Steve Blackman taking on Val Venus with Terry Runnels in his corner. This is a quick match. It's another DQ. Of course, they fucking love DQs. And I was sitting here by myself last week. I think there was 4 DQs in a row. Damn. And there are matches that, even this match too, that's my biggest thing here is the storytelling for DQs. I get it. It's a storytelling mechanism. Yeah. But for Val Venus and Steve Blackman, one of these guys can't lose. Are we serious right now? Someone has to be protected to the point. Let's go through some of these spots here. Of course, on commentary, Jim Ross is congratulating Jesse Ventura for becoming the governor of Minnesota. And he says, quote, "That's a bold choice." So we hear about it here on the TV. We get Blackman delivering kicks, gets a near fall, and they're going back and forth. We get Venus hitting a Russian leg sweep. Terry's back, and she gives Val a low blow for the DQ. And then Owen Hart and the Blue Blazer come out and beat on Steve Blackman. So we thought Owen was retired. He's not. He's back. But why couldn't you just do this behind the ref's back and pin Steve Blackman?
Yeah.
I don't understand what. I don't know. Maybe it's just the mindset of we watch wins and losses. Wins and losses don't mean anything here, but even more so, you could tell a story by having someone lose. And none of these guys are these big bads where you have to protect them beyond belief. Steve
No,
Black
100%.
with the loss, like it takes away what DQs are used for when you need them in a main event.
Well, I mean, in all due respect with what you're saying, I mean, Steve Blackman's career didn't go that much further than
Right.
what we're reading here, what we're talking about, what we watched. So, I mean, the guy's, yeah, I mean, it's not like it hurt his career to fucking take a loss here. I would have been more for him taking a loss as opposed to to doing the DQ spot. And Val Venus was already over. Steve Blackman's working his way there. This wouldn't have hurt either character for them to take a fucking L.
So backstage, you have Mankind getting a haircut, and he's talking to the hairdresser about how he loves Vince. Vince is like a father to him. And she says, you should give Vince McMahon a hug. And he wonders if maybe Vince will buy him some new teeth. So nice comedy stuff here.
I love it.
Mick Foley riffing. You can tell he's working off the cuff here. He had said to her he needs new teeth because Steve Austin threw them in the crowd, which is true because during the Unforgiving match, you remember he steps on his teeth and throws them in the crowd. That's a famous thing there. And, you know, I just love Mick Foley in these times where he can be himself and work off the cuff. It's great.
Yeah, really flowing into the comedic genius that he had. Like, I love it so much. Like, maybe I should, you think Vince will buy me new teeth? You know, like, maybe you should give him a hug. Like, fuck, man, it's so well done. So well done.
So we have a preview for the Survivor Series tag team match. It's a triple threat match. One member of each team. Mosh is with Thrasher, took on D'Lo Brown with Mark Henry, and Road Dogg with Billy Gunn. Of course, all three teams will be competing for the WWF Tag Team Championship at Survivor Series. So this right now, we have Shane McMahon as the ref. And of course, we saw last week that Vince had said Shane's going to be a lowly referee. So he's working matches that are just even matches that have nothing to do with Stone Cold or the corporation or nothing like it. Just he's involved. So he's just doing everything he's doing as far as being a ref, and he's unassuming. You're watching this match and like, oh crap, that's Shane McMahon. They mentioned on commentary, but it's not to the point where it's storyline driven. You believe he's just a ref, which was smart, especially what happens in Survivor Series. You want to make sure it's not weird that he's a ref.
No, absolutely. I love it.
Anyway, we see Mosh get the win here with the stage dive, or the mosh pit, I should call it. Three-way with a lot of cool stuff. D'Lo hit the sky high, and then the mosh pit hits D'Lo, so back and forth. Afterward, Billy Gunn throws Mosh out of the ring. He cleans house on Mark Henry and D'Lo. This is just a build towards the tag match, 5 minutes and 30 seconds. A lot of these guys with the headbangers don't have a lot of cohesion. This was better than I expected, but still very messy with all different styles. It just wasn't great.
Yeah, no, 100%. I wish I longed for more out of Mosh and Thrasher. I really did. I thought it was a cool gimmick, especially during the time coming out with like Marilyn Manson shirts and shit like that. But they never fully delivered for me, and they never really completely. Besides the guys wearing skirts and metal shirts like that, that's all that their gimmick was for me. I wish there was more out of it. This was a good outcase or a good showcase by them, though. Not the best shit in the world, but still, it was solid filler, and I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it.
So we have a Michael Cole interview with Jeff Jarrett and Deborah, which leads us into our match, which is Jeff Jarrett versus Goldust. And Deborah is, of course, at the side of Jeff Jarrett. Unfortunately for everybody involved, we get another DQ. Of course, why? Goldust winds up getting the win. Some back and forth, some stuff building towards mid-card stuff. But, man, we see the end. Goldust putting a kiss on Deborah. Goldust turns around, guitar right to his head. Ref sees it, gets a DQ, 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Deborah wipes off the kiss, hugs Jarrett, and then that's the end of the match. Again, I asked the question, why do we need a DQ here? Why?
Absolutely. Doesn't make any sense, but still, again, not the worst shit in the world we've seen, especially at our time here in Shot Nostalgia, but not the best. Yeah, it could have been better. It could have been worse.
So we get Rock arriving to the arena, and then we get a video package for Jesse Ventura, and Jerry Lawler announces that Mr. McMahon has issued a personal invitation for Jesse to show up on Raw next week, and they show a Memphis newspaper has Lawler in an editorial cartoon dealing with Ventura's election. Jerry Lawler promises he's not running for anything anytime soon. And then we get Michael Cole with The Rock backstage. He cuts a promo, very babyface. He cuts all his stuff. He calls himself the People's Champion. He calls everybody a jabroni piece of trash, Rudy Poo, candy ass, all that stuff. It's The Rock's classic promo.
The best.
And after the interview, Jeff Jarrett and Goldust come through fighting with one another. So this is also what we were kind of complimentary of AEW when they were starting to merge their world, making it immersive. And also WWE when Triple H first took over, where it felt like it was a living, breathing ecosystem where you could be cutting an interview, but you also see Karrion Kross and Scarlett sitting across, or Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn plotting for their match, whatever.
Yeah.
That was the same thing here where Jeff Jarrett and Goldust were there and Blue Blazer making the save fresh out of the Rock interview. So it didn't feel like anything was in a vacuum. So kind of chaos, but it was a good example of what we were talking about all those weeks ago.
Yeah, fun chaos. Like it brings you more into it. You got to love it.
So we go into Warzone, the 10 p.m. hour, and we have that Hardcore Championship match, Ken Shamrock and Mankind for the Hardcore Championship. And this is the first defense ever of the WWF Hardcore Championship. So a monumental day here. And man, good match. I really much enjoyed this. And the Hardcore Championship, I know everyone remembers it for how diluted it became. But if you were a kid during this time, correct me if I'm wrong, Belcast, the Hardcore Championship was your favorite part of the show. I mean, it was mine.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, just outside of the brawling everywhere and doing everything, like I really enjoyed the hardcore program. This match though was so. It's still the show. It was so good. I mean, talk about first ever title defenses, and it's Ken Shamrock and Mankind. Like, how crazy is that? And they delivered, and that was the cool thing about it, which is rare, especially on a Monday Night Raw, especially at the top of the hour for Warzone. Just really good shit on both guys' parts. But I love the hardcore title, and it became a staple of my figure fed. It became a staple of I had the Jack specific like child size hardcore title. Like I loved it, and it was greatly due to Mick Foley, but also greatly due to Ken Shamrocks and the hardcore Hollies and the whole world. It's insane, man.
So we got a lot of good action inside the ring, outside the ring, using weapons, of course, brawling in the front row. Shamrock's choking Mankind with a cable. And then, of course, we see the ending kind of crescendo with, we get the emergence of Vince McMahon, Big Boss Man. We got Briscoe and Patterson at the top with Sergeant Slaughter. Shamrock gives Mankind a back suplex on the steel ramp. Very close near fall. Mankind ducks a running chair shot, backdrive Shamrock and turns around and gets his head drilled with the chair. So it looks like Mankind's about to be pinned. Boss Man gets involved. He hits Shamrock with the nightstick. Mankind looks over, collapses on Shamrock for the 3 count. Like you said before, very fun. 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Mick Foley, Mankind retains his Hardcore Championship. Now, obviously, too, it's setting the stage for Mankind's the pick. This is the corporate champion they want. And you can see Mankind, despite being woozy from being hit and knocked around, that it's kind of resonating with him. Like, I'm the guy. Mankind gives Vince a hug, and Vince is, he's apprehensive about the hug, doesn't want it, but he's like, you know what? Anybody but Austin. And at this point, we look like this has happened. This is a forgotten gem of this era. I think this was a really good match.
No, 100%. Even the post stuff, like with like you were just talking about, where Foley's hugging Vince, and Vince is like, God damn it, like, okay, here we go. Like it's so. It speaks so much to Foley and Vince's characters in the long run, and how awesome they were at what they were doing, and really believability, right? Like you fell in love with Foley being this goofball that will never make it. And like they're grooming them, they're trying to do their best they can, but like take away from all the match itself, like the characters are so damn strong between both of them. It's beautiful. It goes back to when we were doing the debut of Mr. Sacco. You feel the repertoire between Vince and Foley so much that it was just as good as Austin and Vince, and I don't think people speak about that enough, because Foley and Vince was such a fun, like redheaded stepchild like vibe, like, damn it, I don't like him at all, but he'll do. Like it works so well. And man, I loved every minute of it. And the match was just stellar, especially for a Raw match. Crazy.
So to continue with our usual suspects type of thing, where of course, if we're following the tea leaves to know what happened, if you're going back and watching it, knowing The Rock is involved in cahoots with the corporation, we get this segment here that raises eyebrows when you go back and watch it. So we jump backstage. Michael Cole saying The Rock has been attacked. EMTs are coming into the room. And then we return back from commercial. And Cole says The Rock suffered a huge blow to the back of the head, and he'll keep us informed when more information becomes available. That's key, because now The Rock can't get involved in other things to kind of show his hand, where he's not laying his hand on the corporation when it's needed, especially he is the 1B to the biggest foil in Vince's plans as Austin. And it's beautifully done. You would be unassuming to watch this because you're assuming the corporation attacked him. But now going back and watching it, he's faking it to just buy some time and trick people to not understand his motives.
The best. Absolutely love it.
So we get Stone Cold's glass breaking, heads out to the ring. He gets on the mic and he says, ever since I got a new 5-year contract and Shane McMahon overstepped Vince's authority, I realized life has been much easier. And then he said, I haven't had to drive cement trucks or Zambonis or cause chaos to the point, we saw before he made Vince pee his pants. And he also realized that Vince still hates my guts. I still hate his. But you know what? I have a chance to win the championship at Survivor Series. He cuts a promo on Bossman saying Bossman will do whatever it takes to make sure that he's not the champion and that their match opening up the show at Survivor Series is going to exceed everybody's expectations. Yeah, I mean, he really puts over Bossman. That's what I pulled from here. And I know Bossman doesn't go on to be a champion, but we're only a few weeks removed from him coming back, looking like $1 million, dressed like, wearing the shield, for lack of a better term. Yeah. He's wearing the shield outfit, dropped a lot of weight for a big man. And yeah, I think this was a nice mini feud for Austin, and they protected him too. Last week when I was talking about this, when they did the whole Bossman hard times in a cage thing, he's the only guy that didn't get stunned. And that was commonplace. Like Hogan must drop his leg and Hogan must pose, but Austin had to stun people to end shows, and he didn't do it to Bossman. They left him standing face to face through the cage, and they wanted to establish him as an equal on the other side for him. And that was important. And I think it eventually drops the ball from there.
No, 100%. I think we nailed it when we were talking about when Bossman debuted. Like this has got to be the hype that they had for Dr. Death going in against Steve Austin. Like the same kind of vibe. I mean, the guys. I'm glad it worked out the way it did because Big Bossman is a great character, and they set him up for fucking success here. It was amazing, but I love it. I absolutely do. I wish Bossman got a little bit more out of this run. It would have been great.
So we lead into our next match here. It's Tiger Ali Singh with Babu taking on Al Snow. It's mid-card fodder, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. We get no entrance for Al Snow. Tiger Ali Singh gets a rare win with the running face slam. This pretty much sets up Jeff Jarrett and Al Snow. Deborah gets involved. Al Snow doesn't lose clean. So this gives the Jarrett and Snow match Survivor Series some added heat. And Tiger Ali Singh, who's on his way out, gets a win. But at least it wasn't a DQ. They easily could have done a DQ. This would fit in that spot, but Tiger Ali Singh gets the win.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And any thoughts on that?
No thoughts on that. I'm glad we're running low on Babu and Tiger Ali Singh time, so I'll take it.
So we get an update from Michael Cole about Rock's situation. Vince jumps in the room and says, here's your update. Rock is real close to unemployment if he doesn't get involved in the match. And he says Rock knows how it feels to hit rock bottom. They're really selling that Rock is hurt, not able to compete in the main event, but we'll see what Rock can do. We lead into another match here, and unfortunately for everybody involved, it's a disqualification. Kane takes on Edge.
We stopped drinking during DQs because we'd be
fucking crazy, right?
Done by now, yeah.
So Kane defeated Edge with Christian and Gangrel, the Brood are all together. Edge looks like he's under some sort of trance, and Kane brings with him a gas can and a blowtorch to the ring. So they go back to last week's Raw when Kane ran over half the roster, gave them all choke slams. And earlier in the show, X-Pac took a fireball to the face from Kane. And Jim Ross confirms he's going to be okay and will be at Survivor Series. Kane, of course, takes it to Edge. He boots him, goes for choking him. Edge forces Kane to the floor where the Brood start to attack him. And Kane's no selling, of course. Kane is Frankenstein during this era. And we get a lot of stuff here where now Kane is beating up the whole Brood. Kane runs and leaps off the steps to clothesline Edge as Kane sends Edge into the ring. Christian and Gangrel double teaming him. And we get the DQ. And Kane comes right back up from being kicked on the floor, choke slams for the entire Brood. He puts them all on top of each other, and he starts pouring the gasoline on them. Jimmy Corderas tries to stop him. He gets choke slammed. He gets added to the pile. Jim Ross and Lawler are begging for somebody to come out. The Brood and Corderas are doused in gasoline, and here comes a whole mess of referees. Tony Garea, as they save the day. The crowd's booing because they want the Brood and Corderas to be lit on fire, and Jim Ross is very upset, and Kane looks completely unstoppable going into the tournament. completely unstoppable, psychotic, and here we are. So
Yeah.
we would see more of the lighting on fire thing. He lights JR on fire in like 2003, where he was like he was demasked and he was doing all that stuff. But
Yeah.
Kane and fire go to hand in hand. It's like chocolate and peanut butter.
Listen, we wouldn't have had our first Inferno match without him. We wouldn't have all these cool spots without him. It's cool. It's a good vibe, good gimmick, but you can't be lighting half the roster on fire and referees and officials and shit. Like get it together. I know you're future mayor of Knoxville, but this is not mayor behavior. Okay, Jesse the Body Ventura will tell you otherwise. Can't be burning
Vince
people
McMahon...
in the Bajas game.
Vince McMahon's wheeled down in his wheelchair, and he has obviously his crew with him. Boss Man's there to witness the main event up close with The Rock versus Mark Henry. Vince gets on the mic. He's making fun of the Dallas Cowboys, which is getting huge heat. The Cowboys are on a losing streak at this point, and I looked it up in week 9. They're 5-3, so they're not bad, but they're talking about how they're going to blow it in the playoffs. Shane McMahon walks out. He's wearing a ref shirt. Shane tells Vince, stop taking out his frustrations on the fans. Stone Cold The Rock because of him. And if Daddy Vince wants to channel his anger on someone, let it be Shane, because that's how it's always been. Vince then tells Shane to leave or he'll get another beating. And Shane refuses. Vince orders Bossman to assault him with his nightstick. And before Bossman starts to hit him, Stone Cold runs down, knocks down Bossman through the ropes. And the Dallas crowd is absolutely losing their shit for this. Austin grabs the nightstick and he's attacking Bossman, and he leaves with Shane. So Bossman is trying to go after Austin, but Vince orders him to stay. And he yells for Shane and Austin to get the hell out of here. And we go right into our main event with the entrances. They play Rock's music a few times. He doesn't come out to do the whole injury spot where like play it, they stop it, they play it, they stop it. And then he comes out limping to the ring. He's wearing his workout gear. Vince is laughing at ringside with them. And then The Rock bum rushes Henry and puts his boots in the corner. They go back and forth. These guys have history too. Of course, the Nation.
Yeah.
Match goes 7 minutes and 23 seconds. And we see a lot of good stuff here, where we get the rock bottom to Mark Henry. Referee's not there. Goes to the people's elbow, connects. Rock covers him. Shane McMahon runs down, counts the pinfall. And now Rock is back in Survivor Series for the tournament, but he's not done yet. He goes to the floor, brings Vince into the ring. He fights off the Stooges, and then he hits the rock bottom and the people's elbow to close out the show. That's the one thing, if you look at going back as far as usual suspects of finding and reading the tea leaves, I guess you can make the argument that Vince and Rock, kayfabe-wise, got in the corner and say, all right, you're going to give me one move. Do it light. Do it nice. Don't hit it hard. But he hit him with the rock bottom. This is the only time he lays hands on Vince, and it really gets people to believe that he's the guy. He's going to be the guy going into Survivor Series as a babyface, not as a heel.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Very, very well executed by both parties. I was 110% behind The Rock on this. I was like, let's go. You know, he was a lightning fucking baby face going to the pay-per-view, which made everything so much better. Listen, I was here for it. It was good. I love the teasing of the injury. I love, Rock like kind of doing his own thing. Like, I got this. I'm going to fuck up Vince. And like, it really added another layer to everything. Really made it really pop when come Survivor Series main event.
So you mentioned Survivor Series. We lead into November 15th, 1998 from St. Louis, Missouri, the Kiel Arena, a.k.a. the Kiel Center. Survivor Series deadly game. All our champions are the same. No titles have changed hands. Of course, Mankind defended his title successfully on Raw, so he's still the hardcore champion. And man, we get Vince starting the show. They wheel him out in the wheelchair, and he guarantees the fans a new WWF champion tonight, and he introduces Mankind to the ring. He starts cutting off a promo, and talks about how his opponent, he's a veteran. He's the head coach of the Pasadena Chargers, and going in about him being a legend. He has a win-loss record that set new standards in the WWF. And he's looking for a different kind of opposition because he left the WCW. And I think there's one match of Dwayne Gill on YouTube from WCW. Check that out. Of course, Mankind defeated Dwayne Gill 30 seconds in a quick match. This Dwayne Gill will go on to be Gilbert.
Yeah.
This is he'll be hanging around for a bit here. But thoughts on this? Double arm DDT for the win, 30 seconds to advance in the tournament for Mankind to open up the show.
A huge pop, first off, because in retrospect, I know it was Gilbert. I'm like, all right, this is good. But you got this pipsqueak guy coming in, And Foley just, does this shit to him, kills him in 30 seconds. The best way to start off a tournament, man. It really puts promise on, Foley's the guy. Like, they're setting him up for success. Here's this fucking jobber. Like, go ahead and kill him. And you're like, all right, cool. I'm signed up for Foley being champion by the end of the night, which was where my mindset was.
There's got to be a lot of unique finishes and quick finishes because of the fact that there are double-digit matches. They're not used to doing this, and we're not going to get length. I'm sure. I think the main event is close to 15 to 17 minutes, but everything else is quick.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. They have to tell stories, and they can't do DQs. Of course, they're going to try. They can do some count-out stuff, as we'll get to. But this is really challenging. That's the one downside for a one-night tournament, that they have to find a way to fit everything in sequentially in 3 hours without being worn down. And maybe now it's a little bit different where there's some more emphasis on the in-ring stuff, but during this time, this is out of their comfort zone where they have to focus on in the ring, not so much telling stories behind the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they did a good job with it, though. I thoroughly enjoyed this tournament. Like I said, this is one of my favorite Survivor Series. I thought it was really done well. I enjoy the shit out of it.
So we go into another first round match. It's Al Snow with Head defeating Jeff Jarrett with Deborah. 3 minutes and 31 seconds. The ref gets a guitar out of the ring, trying to make sure Jarrett doesn't use it. While he's doing that, Snow hits Jarrett with Head for the KO shot, covers him. And my note from this match, aside from both these guys had no shot at becoming the WWF champion, was Jim Ross during the whole match kept on saying Head is wooden, no matter what. Like, clearly a mannequin head. Go back and watch this, guys. He says wooden about 1,000 times. Like, oh, he got him with the wooden head. Dude, it's a mannequin head. Why is it wood?
That's tougher than a $2 steak, damn it. I love it.
But, I mean, there's guys in this tournament that are every tournament. There's guys in tournaments. And, of course, you go back to WrestleMania 4, there's going to be guys in that tournament that had no shot at winning. But never is more evident in this tournament that Jarrett and Al Snow are not winning.
No, 100%.
So we get the match we've been looking forward to, building up at the end of Raw. Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Big Boss Man in a tournament first round match. And Vince is very confident that backstage he's watching on from the ring. This is going to be my guy. Austin's going to be out in the first round. This is what I'm saying with utilizing your DQs sparingly, because this was done beautifully.
Yeah.
Using the DQ in this match makes sense because you want to keep Big Boss Man. You don't want to pin him yet. You want to make sure he's still a threat to Austin. But the way it was done was very good because Austin had him on the ropes. He was doing all the stuff. And Ray Traylor too, man, working in this style of it just shows how agile he became. He was a very agile big guy, especially if you watch his feud with Hogan back in the day. And even in WCW, as Big Bubba. He was moving around very well, but now he's in the best shape of his life. Point is, he has him on the ropes a few times, gets close to counts, but he gets a little bit overzealous and he hits him with the nightstick outside the ring just to bury him. And the ref saw it 3 minutes and 20 seconds and they call for the bell. He continues to beat him down, and then becomes evident that it was part of Vince's plan, that he told him he wanted him DQ'd because he wanted him damaged. So this makes sense storyline wise, but your thoughts on this as far as advancing this tournament? Austin advances too.
I thought it was a very smart way to put Austin ahead of the curve, make Boss Man look very, very strong. And this, like you said, this is a very sensible reason to do a DQ. Obviously, he's rocking the nightstick gimmick already. It's part of his repertoire. He's going to use it, but like a good catch on the ref. Like I thought this was really well put together. And like I said, it was a good way to get Austin advanced without taking any heat off of Big Boss Man or the situation in general. So it was good stuff. Vince losing his shit. Oh my God, how could Austin get it? It works out. It was good storytelling.
So we have a Michael Cole segment checking with Vince McMahon, and he seems very pleased with the ending despite Austin advancing. And at ringside, Austin's returned to the locker room under his own power, but he's damaged. And leads us right into X-Pac versus Steven Regal in another first round match. And this goes longer. And this match to me, and I talked about last week where Steven Regal, aka William Regal, was not in the same headspace that we come to know and love him, especially in WCW and then his later years in WWF, his second run. Yeah. He's not in the best shape during this period, but this match and X-Pac being a great dance partner here, this was a really good match. And I mean, went 8 minutes and 10 seconds. and they go back and forth, and there's some good action here, but Vince's plan tends to get foiled here, and these are guys that are not involved in the storyline, but that's the interesting part about it, where there's a double count out, and you can see Vince is upset at the end, and he sends Slaughter out to do an overtime, and there's a miscommunication with the ref. I'm not sure what the right booking decision was. The match ends as both guys head to the dressing room. So now Austin's gonna have a bye, and Vince is fucking livid. But I think this match is really good, and I know Regal's first run before he had to go get right and healthy after this run.
Yeah,
I thought this match was the highlight of that run, and X-Pac is at the top of his game here.
no, 100%. And like even a bad William Regal match, probably the worst William Regal match is probably the best Dwayne Gill match, you know. But this was great. I do love the Austin getting a bye though. That tells a good story. Like, oh, Austin gets a break, he gets to breathe. Vince is pissed, livid. It almost sets the story up even better. And I'm you know, call it miscommunication. Maybe it was a fucked up finish, but I think it was done on purpose to get Austin that bye time so he could be like, hell yeah, I could go into the next thing refueled, ready to ass kick, and it worked out great. I loved it. But X-Pac, William Regal together, I wish we got to see more of it. It was so damn good.
So we go into another first round match. Ken Shamrock defeated Goldust. Expected 5 minutes and 56 seconds. Not much of this match. Crowd wasn't really reacting. You know the ending here. Ken Shamrock puts him in the ankle lock for the submission. You know, paint by numbers type of here. Shamrock is very aggressive. He is, by all intents and purposes, the main guy in this, and the right guy went over. And I think as far as telling stories, it did the right thing. It made Ken Shamrock look like a legitimate threat to the championship.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Short and sweet, but like again, made Shamrock stand out like a fucking, you know, a flame on a rope. He's doing good shit. So I liked it, man.
So we have here Michael Cole is doing an injury update on Austin's dressing room. The doctors are answering for him, and they're saying he needs medical attention, and they're trying to really emphasize the injuries that he sustained from the nightstick attack from Boss Man, which leads us into our Boss Man's first round match against The Rock. And instead of getting The Rock and Triple H, which was advertised, Triple H was supposed to be here. This is supposed to be the rematch from SummerSlam. Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe come out when the DX team plays. Gerald Briscoe says Triple H chose not to show up tonight and he'll be fined. Jim Ross defends Triple H, saying he had knee surgery. Pat Patterson tells The Rock there won't be a forfeit as Vince has found a replacement for Triple H. And Bossman gets another shot at this. So Bossman's taunting, lasts about 4 seconds. He walks right into an inside cradle. They say it's a new WWF record for the shortest match. And the Bossman loses here. The Rock gets the win, and makes sense too. If you look at it through the scope of if everybody on that side knew what was happening, Bossman and Rock didn't go at it. They're truly a team with the corporation. It makes sense. And the crowd popped huge for this. And it's a good way to cut out time, especially in a card that has so many matches. Match goes 3 seconds. So
yeah, and but like good like mannerisms to set up like, oh yeah, this is like you don't see it now, but by the end of the night you're gonna be like, fuck, they were in on the shenanigans the whole time, man. So I dug it.
We have a quarterfinal match between Taker and Kane, and these guys wrestle a lot, and they've wrestled throughout the 2010s when over the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown. I have to say this might be the least remembered match for them, and from what I understand, I think Taker was hurt at this point. He works for another 9 to 10 months with an injury before taking time off. They go back and forth. Kane's no selling. They both choke slam each other. Winds up at the end here. Paul Bearer distracting Kane. He turns around to a tombstone. Taker gets the win with the assist from Bearer on the floor. Match goes 7 minutes and 16 seconds. Apparently Kane then just attacks Jack Doan off camera, and the camera didn't pick it up, but they're emphasizing the referee gets attacked. So poor Jack Doan took a bump without being on camera. So made the live audience appreciate it. But we get a Taker win here. And like we said, Taker is hurting, man. Like he's been fighting through that injury he had all the way back in June of 98 with that foot. And it's not getting better. He needs some time off to rest.
No, absolutely. And well-deserved time off, but like a good quick match between two big men, good finish for, you know, Paul Bearer being out there distracting Kane. Like it worked out well. And it was quick to advance the story to the next spot. And we know Taker is getting that time off coming soon, so it's good for him.
Yeah, we're gonna get him at WrestleMania 15, and then we'll get a rebrand coming 2000 where he's going to debut the American Badass gimmick pretty soon. So not
wild,
too long.
man.
We'll get a final run of the ministry throughout this year where he's working. So we have about a year and a half left, which is crazy because at this point you're watching, he definitely needs some time off. You can tell he's hurting, and they're working house shows. They're working every week, man. Like the dude has a lot of miles on the body. He just needs to take a break.
100%, man.
So we lead to another quarterfinal match. Match goes 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Mankind defeated Al Snow with head. Quick match. These guys know each other really well. They're friends. They do have a history in the WWF and ECW. You could tell that there's a kinship between them. Mankind gets we saw him obviously get the Dwayne Gill win, where that was kind of cheap and fans, whatever. But this was a nice emphasis where we saw him hit the double arm DDT, pulls out Sacco, mandible claw, and the win. So it was like, okay, awesome. Like Mankind looks like he's going to earn it too. It's not just like he's going to be given this. He earned it. And Jim Ross thinks Mankind set to win the championship because thanks to Mr. McMahon's master plan. And Mankind, if I want to just reference, he's wearing the tuxedo that's kind of ripped apart from that first match. He's still wearing it. And JR calls Mankind's loafers part of the Jim Barnett collection. So good stuff here from Mankind. And they're making him feel like a main eventer here. And you're starting to think maybe, just maybe, it's Mick Foley's time to shine.
Yeah, fucking crazy, man. Really fun. Just a good, quick, for what it was, great match. I really enjoyed it.
So the other quarterfinal match is Rock taking on Ken Shamrock. And the other thing is, if Triple H was ready to go at Survivor Series, other than crowning The Rock as champion, which is a big moment in itself, he would have had to gone through guys that were pivotal parts of his build towards it. If he would have beat Triple H and then would have beat Ken Shamrock here in the quarterfinals to get to, and then beating Mankind, which is another guy who later on down the line will be a huge part of his career. But as far as Shamrock and The Rock goes, their rivalry throughout 1998 is historic. I mean, from their Rumble match to WrestleMania, their King of the Ring finals, and now here at Survivor Series, it's hard to think of two other guys that had such a year intertwined to each other and how pivotal they were for each other going forward and the leaps and bounds that The Rock took just based on this feud. And during all these matches, The Rock has never pinned or submitted Ken Shamrock. Just keep that in mind. So
huge. Absolutely
at WrestleMania
huge,
14. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a good story here where he's finally going to do it. And at WrestleMania 14, remember that the decision was reversed because Ken Shamrock attacked all the refs and stuff, and Rock remained champion. But this was a really good match. 8 minutes, 20 seconds. The crowd is chanting Rocky. They're very much behind him. Boss Man comes out to ringside to kind of initiate some shenanigans. And we see Boss Man hopping on the apron. And this was a great spot here because out of reach. So Boss Man throws the nightstick and Rock barely grabs it, pulls it down, shows his football skill set, and then nails Shamrock right in the head with it. And man, looks awesome. 8 minutes and 20 seconds, pins him, big moment, fans pop. And the dynamic between the two of these guys, it's epic. It's chef's kiss. I love Shamrock and The Rock. And what a good way on his way to win the championship to have to pass Shamrock. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, and I love that spot with the baton, throwing it, Rock barely catching it, but gets it, and hits Shamrock. Like, it's so beautifully done, and a very underrated spot from this year. So awesome. Good way to advance the storytelling without screwing up shit. Very, very much so. Loved every minute of it.
So quickly here, Sable defeated Jacqueline for the women's championship. She hits the tornado DDT, and then I should say Jacqueline tries it at tornado DDT, shoves her off, Sable bomb for the win. Decent match. I feel like women's wrestling's come a long way. So watching this, it's like, not great. But for the times given in this card, give them credit for putting it on the card, especially stacked with all these other matches. Sable gets a crowning moment. Fans don't really react the way you want them to react, but they're not conditioned to care. And it's going to take them time to care about it. But Sable walks away.
And they're probably very exhausted for the night of fuckery of pro wrestling tournaments that they are dealing with right now. So it felt a little out of place. This could have been something they did on Raw, and probably would have popped a bigger view for it, I think, or a better response. But I liked it. It was cool. Good to see Sable get her moment. And yeah, I love Jacqueline, man. I think she's amazing. It's so crazy how underrated she is.
Yeah, and Shane was ref for that match too, so they're then setting the stone. So it's not weird that he's the ref during the Stone Cold match and the Rock match. So, which leads us into that semifinal match: Mankind taking on Stone Cold, and Austin comes out completely selling the nightstick attack from the match with Boss Man. Him and Mankind go at it, man. They have a history this year. Of course, we talk about the Unforgiving match for the title, as Dude Love. These guys have great chemistry. I just love the two of them in the ring, and this was no different, going back and forth. And there's some story to be told in here. And Austin from the beginning rips off the tuxedo jacket, which I felt like was symbolism, just to be like, I want the Mankind that I know and love. I don't want you wearing these Gucci loafers. He takes one off and slaps him in the head with it. Really good stuff here. Of course, all the shenanigans afterwards where Briscoe and Patterson come in. They get a double noggin knocker. And then Vince orders ref Mike Chioda to count out Austin as he's outside, being the steps hit first, being tossed in by Mankind. They fight in the crowd. Austin clotheslines Mankind back over the barricade, and he sits down in a rear chin lock, and Austin elbows out for a slugfest. Double knockout spot ensues, and they fight from corner to corner. It's really awesome action here. And here's where it gets interesting. Austin tries the Bossman straddle, only miss back, fall on the chair, double arm DDT on the chair. You think it's over. Mankind's about to celebrate the win, but a near fall, kicks out at 2 3/4. Mankind then calls for the pile driver while everyone's watching at ringside. Austin back drives Mankind on the chair instead, hits the stunner, and he kicks out, which was awesome to see Mankind get kicking out of the stunner. Vince McMahon gets out of the wheelchair, and now everyone's looking at him like Vince can stand. So the ref and pulls him to the floor. Mankind's coming out of his tuxedo. He finds the mandible claw. Austin counters one more time. Stone Cold Stunner. There's no ref. Here comes Shane, man. He's sweated up from that women's championship match. Slides in the ring. 1, 2, and Shane is on his knees giving Austin the double middle finger. That famous spot. Austin's face is classic. Absolutely classic. And everybody knows the deal here. Mankind runs down Austin with a clothesline. Here comes Sergeant Slaughter and Briscoe. Slaughter holds up Austin while Briscoe hits him with a chair. And Mankind covers Austin for the 3 count. Shane McMahon does the courtesy of doing it. 10 minutes and 27 seconds. So there's a spot here where we had, as I mentioned, Briscoe hit him with a chair, and it's not the best chair shot because it's Gerald Briscoe doing. He's well past his prime. And word is that Big Boss Man was supposed to be making that run in for the finish, and they were fucking livid. So he was at ringside with everybody, apparently. I think we saw Boss Man, but he had gone back to talk to Taker about their match later in the night. And for whatever reason, he wasn't there for the spot, and they had to improvise, and it had to be Gerald Briscoe. They were waiting for the spot. And man, it was maybe, and no one will admit this, but maybe that's the reason Boss Man doesn't have the push he was supposed to be getting. And he goes straight to the mid card because people were livid, and it almost cost him the whole angle because that was a big piece to it, and it almost didn't go over as well. And Austin had to take a pin from a Gerald Briscoe chair shot, which whatever, he got a lot of damage done to him, but it's Austin. You want someone else delivering that chair shot that has some oomph behind it, not Gerald Briscoe.
Absolutely, and you want to prolong that feud between Boss Man and Austin, like you gotta add that fuel to the fire. But listen, it came off great. I thought this was a fantastic match, especially Austin and Foley just going back and forth. Really good shit. A lot of good near spots. These two could piss in the wind together, and I'd fucking pay high quality pay-per-view prices to watch it. So good, so good.
So after the match, we get complete chaos after it, where they all get away in a limo. The Stooges, Boss Man, McMahon's, because they're chasing away, and Austin gets up. He's chasing them. He steals a Ford Explorer, gets in himself, and he chases them down. And if you are a fan of this type of wrestling, the Attitude Era, like if you liked any of the stuff, I mean, what else can you ask for? Everything's involved here. It's the best of both worlds. You get good work rate with Mankind and Austin, then plus all the gaga in between with all the stuff going on with Vince at ringside. Vince stands up where he was supposed to be bound to a wheelchair this whole time, and out of reaction to Austin hitting the stunner and Mankind kicking out. He stood up, and out of like initial reaction, he stood up and everyone noticed that he's so beautiful storytelling.
Yeah.
It's just, it was ridiculous, but so ridiculous in the right way. And we saw the story.
100%.
Austin's eliminated and Mankind's moved to the finals. And you think it's going to be Mankind defeating The Rock or Rock is your last chance. Like, we're sitting there thinking Rock is going to be winning the championship.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Very well put together, really well thought out for a tournament, especially a one-night tournament. I think nowadays it would take WWE a month to book something this poetically nice, like there's no way you do it this well. And they did a great job with it. I fucking loved every minute of it. And like you said, you're hyped for Foley now. You're hyped for The Rock to be the last guy. Like, what's going to happen? I don't fucking know. It's crazy. And it left a lot of good what ifs for storytelling. I'm here for it.
So we have another semifinals match. The Rock has to get past Taker if he wants to go to the finals. But, this match was okay. And I feel like the buzz of the arena was a little bit down, especially coming off that other match. 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Some stuff going on. Of course, Bossman gets involved and Kane gets involved as well. Yeah, Bossman finally gets back. Wasn't he in the getaway limo, though? Like, what the hell? So the ending protected both guys. It is a DQ finish. So Taker stands up, goes to chokeslam Rock. Kane comes out. Taker sends Rock over to Kane, who chokeslams Rock for the DQ. Undertaker gets eliminated, and then Taker punches Earl Hebner. Kane attacks Taker, and they brawl into the crowd. And this match wasn't great, and I know we talked about Taker being hurt, but I was trying my damnedest to think about a Taker Rock match that was really good. Maybe they're just two guys that don't mesh up well, and they're two great guys. It just sometimes there's two talents that don't have chemistry, and this is the first of 3 pay-per-view meetings between the two in their history. So I think this is the worst of the 3, I have to say.
Yeah. No, I think they have good chemistry together. I think this was just not their night. Absolutely. But I mean, we've seen some legendary promos between The Rock and Taker. We've seen them wrestle in the 6-man Hell in the Cell. That was fun. There's some good spots there, but it's just not. This left a lot more to the thought than you wanted it. Like it could have been better. Was it terrible? No. Was it great? No, absolutely not.
So our next match here is for the tag team championship. It's a 3-way dance, and not really going to go through the spots because to me, this match was just there. New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn defeated The Nation, D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry, and the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher. So, go through the ending here for you guys. Crowd is not reacting at all. They don't care. Maybe they're fatigued, but there's a lot to be said about time and place for some of these matches. And you mentioned the Women's Championship on Raw. This could have been also put on
easily,
Raw.
Yeah.
Your time and place. And we have Billy Gunn giving Mosh a pile driver to end the match. This match was a long, messy endeavor. It was all over the place. Nobody really knew what they were doing. It just, I don't know who to discredit for it, but everybody involved deserves some level of blame, I guess, because this match had no cohesion. Nothing made sense. Yeah, if you were looking for what not to do in wrestling, check this match out. It just was, I don't even know what to say about it. It wasn't even so much the work rate. It was mostly the lack of psychology. That was what bothered me most about it. And it was so fucking long that nothing made any sense. And I don't know who to blame. I really don't.
Well, listen, it's a hard spot to be in because you got all these like really decently done storytelling singles matches that he throw this clusterfuck of a tag match in there. It does not belong in the card, especially this late. This should have opened the show, if anything. And it could, we both said, it could have been on Monday Night Raw. I'm not throwing fucking fists anywhere, but I'm throwing it out. Maybe it's the Headbangers' fault. I don't know. It's just to throw some blame somewhere, but it was nothing spectacular. We could have skipped it and it wouldn't even matter.
So we go to our main event. It's for the WWF Championship, which is vacated, as we mentioned before, The Rock and Mankind. And during The Rock's entrance, we catch Vince and Shane backstage. They send Bossman on his way. They say, "Thank you for your help tonight." Match, man, these guys go at it from the beginning. Vince and Shane are heading down to the ring not too long into it. Rock fights out of a chin lock, and the crowd, is getting involved too because they head into the crowd. And back inside the ring, Rock grabs a chin lock. You can tell these guys are kind of setting up for a longer form match. 17 minutes and 10 seconds. It goes all together, but some really good spots here. We even get a Spanish announce table spot, and we get Mankind leaping from the second rope and the Rock to move as Mankind crashes through the table. Nothing like an Attitude Era announce spot where these guys go to the table, right?
That doesn't hit the same no matter when you're doing it. That this was the year for it. Like you gotta love it.
So we get the people's elbow and Mankind kicks out a 2, and then he sits up, hits a double arm TDT and pulls out Sacco. The mandible claw has Rock down on the mat, and the ref does the arm spot too, which is great. I think they need to bring more of that back where they put the arm up and falls down, and at the third time he holds it up, the old Hogan spot. Rock looks over at Vince, raises the eyebrow. Rock grabs the sharpshooter on Mankind. Vince and Shane run over to the timekeeper, screaming for the bell to ring. They do the whole Montreal 97 finish all over again, and we have a brand new WWF champion, 17 minutes, 18 seconds. And Vince grabs the mic. He announces to the world, Vince didn't screw the people screwed the people. He admits the people are just as gullible and idiotic as Mankind. And he says he's so proud of what went down during the Stone Cold matches tonight. He says the only person who he detests and loathes more would be Mick Foley, and he runs him down. And The Rock is now the champion. Vince calls Shane's performance Oscar-worthy. Shane hugs his dad. Rock grabs the mic. He cuts a great heel promo, really sets the tone. He calls the people trailer trash. He, Mankind interrupts.
Down.
And
love it.
He tries to figure out what's going on. Mankind doesn't want to believe it, despite what's going on. He's like, what's going on? And The Rock nails him from behind with the WWF Championship belt. And, man, even more sympathetic. Pulls him up again, hits the rock bottom to Mankind. The Rock, Vince, and Shane are celebrating. And Stone Cold not going to take this down laying down. He comes out to the ring. Vince and Shane hightail it out of there. Austin delivers the best fucking stunner to The Rock. Throws him out of the ring. Throws the belt out of the ring. And Mankind gets back to his feet. Austin walks over in character, gives Mankind a stunner as well. Austin hits the corners, stomps one more mud hole in The Rock, and leaves with 2 middle fingers in the air. Great ending to the show.
Yeah.
You set up your big bad for going forward. It's The Rock as your main heel. You have your WrestleMania 15 main event set in November of the year before. And that's what you want, dude. Like, that's how you set the stage for a big match. And you want to see it so bad. Austin versus Rock is money where it is.
Yeah. No, so good. Picture-esque quality ending for a pretty decent pay-per-view. Like I said, this is one of my favorite Survivor Series just because of the tournament in one night. But man, the characters involved in these main events for this year is just fucking through the roof. And this is, this doesn't steer anywhere far from that. This was so good. I love Foley being dismissed, like, what's going on? Austin, like, The Rock's just like, you fucking jabroni, like, kicks the shit out of it. It's so damn good storytelling. I love it. Getting Austin back out there was the cherry on top of the cupcake, man. It was so good.
Yeah, and we're going to see this continue, and we'll, of course, see Mankind get the championship involved, and all these guys will be involved, too. All the same players, where Mankind will get the win with DX involved. So this story is not over for Mankind, but right now he's the biggest sympathetic character, and the fans just want so badly to come out on top for once. But Austin's going to do his best to get the title back at WrestleMania 15, but we're going to have the corporate champion, which is some of the most memorable stuff from The Rock. Really lets him come into his own. And I talked about it last week. They took a risk here because I guess they looked at their roster and said, we have Austin, he's our biggest babyface. We have Rock, he's another big babyface, almost equal to Austin. They took a risk by turning him heel, and I still state to this day, if they didn't turn The Rock heel, he wouldn't be the complete megastar he is as quickly as he was. He needed to turn heel to emphasize who he was. I think he was undeniable. Like, he was a guy who was going to get over to the point where he's the biggest star in Hollywood now. It could be the goddamn president of the United States coming up in the next 8 years. Who fucking knows? But as far as booking goes, him being heel is just natural. It fits like a glove.
Yeah, and he carries himself so well. Like, he's got the cadence, the attitude, the pose. Like, he is a charming son of a bitch, but he's also a scum of the earth, and you believe it both ways. I love it all. This was probably one of the smartest moves in 1998 for not just Vince and the WWF, just wrestling in general. I think putting The Rock and this evil character teaming up with Vince, throwing everybody off the Mankind thing. Like, it was so damn well done.
So we move into the show following this night. Lexington, Kentucky's the home. The Rupp Arena, November 16th, 1998. Raw is War. All our champions are the same, aside from our women's champions now Sable. And, of course, our WWF champion is now The Rock. So the show begins with a clip of Stone Cold getting screwed over by Shane. They slow-mo on that middle finger, the double finger, and time to get into the show. Vince walks down to the ring, joined by Shane. He has Briscoe, Patterson, Slaughter, and the Boss Man with them. And Jim Ross says right from the jump, I wonder what he has to say about what went down. McMahon has a big smile on his face. He tells the people, whoever came up with the phrase about not being able to fool all the people all the time was a damn fool himself. Thinks that people who do things the hard way and have middle-class values and ethics are fools as well. And he introduces not the people's champion, but the corporate champion. The Rock comes out through the curtain, and the crowd immediately turns from cheers to boos for The Rock. And even the Rocky Sucks chants start back up. And The Rock reacts accordingly, man. He's so good. As you mentioned, he's a natural. He gets in the ring. The Rock hugs both McMahons. Shane doesn't really get nearly the heat as his dad, but of course, doesn't matter. Everybody in the ring right now is getting heat. And according to the fans, The Rock is a kiss ass. I think that's what they're chanting. That's how I have my notes here. Rock gets on the mic and he says, I'm making fun of all you 9 to 5 morons. I'm out on top of the world, and I'm your WWF World Champion. He feels that all people in the audience are no better than the biggest piece of trailer park trash, Stone Cold. And now the crowd wants Austin to come out. He's renaming the most electrifying move in sports entertainment today to the corporate elbow, and no longer the people's elbow. And he's not calling it the people's eyebrow anymore. It's the corporate eyebrow. Vince grabs the mic and asks The Rock, everything about what's going on. And Vince goes back into promoter mode by setting up Survivor Series Screwjob for us to see in the Titantron, and Stone Cold seeing enter in the arena. Vince yells for Austin to get removed off the Titantron, but he's like, you know what? I'm glad, Austin. I'm glad you're here. Rewatch everything going down from the past 3 weeks. The glass breaks, and here we go. Stone Cold gets to the ring, and he hits all 4 corners and settles for giving all of them the middle fingers. And he grabs the mic and he says, if you think Rock is a sorry sellout son of a bitch, give me a hell yeah. The crowd is pumped up. Vince reminds Austin that the contract states, unless you're provoked, Austin, you can't hit me. And they go back and forth. Austin name drops the Judge Horn of Lexington, Kentucky is responsible for making a title shot happen tonight. And he says, Vince, if you don't like what Judge Horn has to say, Judge Mills Lane appears on the Titantron and essentially declares there must be a Rock versus Austin match tonight in Kentucky on Raw. So that's how you open a fucking show. Yeah. The crowd is pumped up. And here we go, right off to the races.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Hot opener. Again, good shit. Carrying on the repertoire of Austin and Vince and The Rock. And I love The Rock going full blown, like, it's the corporate, elbow. It's the corporate eyebrow now. No, you jabronis. You gotta love how easy it comes for The Rock to be this heel character. Fucking love every minute of it, man.
In our opening match for tonight, D-Generation X, the combo of Billy Gunn, the Road Dogg, and X-Pac, defeated the Oddities, the combination of Giant Silva, Golgo, and Kurgan. They have Princess Luna, Shaggy, Two Dope, and Violent J in their corners. Match goes 2 minutes and 52 seconds. This is the last time we see ICP here. So Gunn covers Golga for a 3 count after hitting the Famouser, and Shaggy Two Dope hit Golga by mistake with something that looked like a weapon, but it was off camera, so who knows? And then DX head out. The Headbangers jump Road Dogg from behind and get chased off by X-Pac, so they're continuing to build towards this mid-card tag title feud. And your thoughts on this, as far as DX, once being the hottest act in wrestling, being succumbed to taking on the Oddities in an opening match on Raw?
Yeah, no, wild. I think Shaggy hit him with their greatest hits album. It's non-existent. It didn't sell. But it's a very, very off-place match, especially coming off of their positions in the pay-per-view yesterday. It just doesn't fit. I feel like this was here to fill time. It's strange how quick the ICP came and gone in WWF, and it felt like forever. But it also felt like forever. So, yeah, I got nothing. It was all right. This could have been on Sunday Night Heat. Didn't need to be on Monday Night Raw.
So out in the ring, we have the IC champion Ken Shamrock heading down. He grabs the mic, complains about how he got screwed by Bossman. He makes a challenge to Bossman, even throws the IC title in the mix. He leaves the ring, and we have another match here. Val Venus against Mark Henry. Val Venus gets the win, no DQ here. But Val Venus gets put over here. China is sort of the focal point of the story with Mark Henry. China reappears at the top of the steps. Mark forgets all about Val Venus during the match. Val rolls him up for a 3 count. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Mark Henry asks China to forget about the lawsuit and just wants to grab dinner. Says, and he repeats, no sex. And he recites another love poem, and D'Lo is trying to hold back tears of laughter. So we're going to get more of the sexual chocolate stuff. China coming back from facial reconstructive surgery. And they're trying to sell it that nothing's really changed, but you can tell she looks a little bit different here.
Yeah, not in a bad way either. It was good, but the Mark Henry spots, fucking no sex. I just want to go to dinner. Like, so
dinner.
good. Leading,
Just
yeah,
dinner.
just dinner. Hands up. Big man's not doing nothing. I just want to go to dinner. Mark Henry was a fucking gem and very underrated for his younger years here. I thought he was fantastic, and this was comedic gold, man. I'm with D'Lo. I'm laughing my ass off all the way to the back.
Our next match here is another tag match. Jeff Jarrett and the Blue Blazer teaming up to take on Goldust and Steve Blackman. Deborah McMichael's in the corner of Blue Blazer and Jeff Jarrett. We're going to see this team of Blue Blazer as Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett later in the year. They'll be tag champs walking into WrestleMania 15. Match is, what you'd probably expect from an Attitude Era match, a tag match. Blackman hits a bicycle kick on Blue Blazer for the win. And at the end of the match, it was 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Blackman tries to remove the Blazer's mask, and he's attacked by Jarrett and Owen Hart. So now we need to figure out who's under the Blue Blazer mask. Jarrett gives Blackman the stroke, the reverse Russian leg sweep. Blazer applies the standing dragon sleeper, and Owen kicks Blackman between the legs, and Goldust finally saves the day. So they're playing this up of someone else is under the Blue Blazer outfit, knowing that it's Owen's gimmick. The payoff's not worth it at all, especially...
Well,
Owen can be doing so much more. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing. I keep watching this. It's like, this is what you're doing with Owen Hart. He can be involved in the main event. He's that talented.
No, it's absolutely wild to think that this is how Owen spent his last couple months wrestling. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. He should have ran for mayor of Calgary or something. It would have been better.
Anything would have been better than this.
Yeah, and like knowing the fate of the Blue Blazer character and everything, like it's
hard to
almost
watch,
depressing to watch. Yeah, and you're just like, shit, man. Yeah.
So we have a segment in the corporation's locker room. Gerald Briscoe is trying to find the boiler room where Mankind is trying to get back his bearings. He's upset. He said, I heard some weird noises in there and I was afraid to see what it was. Slaughter calls Briscoe a wuss, and Slaughter is so quick to judge. Vince says, you know what, Slaughter? You go to the boiler room, go find him. Slaughter leaves to go bring Mankind to Vince, and we go right into Warzone. And when we return, Slaughter comes back empty-handed, convinced that Mankind is crazy. Vince says, I don't care if the three of them have to put on riot gear. Go take care of Mankind. They argue amongst themselves, leave the room while Slaughter leads the way. And we're supposed to get a match between Godfather and Steven Regal. It winds up not happening because Godfather offers Regal, the real man's man, all three of his ladies for the night. One of the chicks shows, she pulls up her skirt, and Regal gets on the mic and accepts the broad's. Match is over. And Godfather didn't think Regal would take him up on the offer. And he quotes Archie Bunker saying, England ain't nothing but a place full of blank. And that leads to a fight and Regal having a bad night instead of an even worse night with whatever those women were going to allow him to do. So no match here.
Good segment.
I don't think we often saw someone take Godfather up on the offer of taking the ladies, right? It's usually just like they would be insulted.
Yeah, occasionally somebody would be like, "Well, all right," like, but I think this was the first, and this was done so well by Willie Regal's, like, just great character, man. So good.
So here we are with the next match here for the Intercontinental Championship. Ken Shamrock taking on Bossman, and this is the match Ken Shamrock was alluding to. We know Bossman cost Ken Shamrock not one but two matches in the past 7 days thanks to the nightstick. Shamrock meets Bossman as he comes to the ring and grabs the nightstick from his hand. He goes to swing at Bossman, and the ref snatches the nightstick away, and Bossman takes over with the Bossman straddle, followed by the slide and uppercut. Some good action here for the IC title, but unfortunately we get a DQ finish because they take turns choking each other in the corner. Mike Chioda won't leave him alone, He gets blasted by both Shamrock and Bossman at the same exact time. As far as DQ finishes, pretty well done. The fight continues, and the ref can't control the match. 3 minutes and 57 seconds. We get more refs, more agents trying to separate Bossman and Shamrock. And once things settle down, Vince and Shane walk to the ring, and he tells both the guys, you need to stop. And he makes the case to Shamrock they aren't so different, and they both come from the same type of background, and not even the people give a damn about you. So Vince cares more about you, and I understand your plight. Vince offers him a place in the McMahon family. We don't know the name corporation yet, but now both these guys will be stablemates, and there's a corporate champion, a corporate enforcer, and every corporation needs a dangerous man. Vince offers to consider the offer, and he doesn't take him long to shake Vince's hand. Then he shakes Bossman's hand, and Shamrock's joined the corporation. So wild. As a guy who, especially his blood feud with The Rock, knowing The Rock is the champ of the corporation, I don't know. What did you think about Shamrock turning heel and doing this?
I wasn't happy, but I wish it would have planted seeds towards like a bigger feud between Rock and Shamrock. I feel like Shamrock kind of fizzes out here, right? Like this is his last like big deal before the Ryan Shamrock shit starts coming through. All these weird angles. I was hoping for more out of it, but I enjoy a heel Shamrock, so it wasn't the worst decision on their part. Teaming up right after a match, though, this could have waited a week, let it breathe a little bit more. Yeah. That way, that handshake between Shamrock and Vince would have been like, oh shit, like what's going on? But it's whatever, done well. They have enough shit going on. Don't need the muddy up the waters, but more of it.
So our next match here, the Brood, Edge, and Gangrel with Christian in their corner, defeated LOD 2000, Animal and Droz by countout. This is the stuff with Hawk after the match. So we'll run down some of the stuff. Edge charges into a power slam, and then they see Hawk at the tunnel. Next thing we know, Hawk's at the top of the Titantron. Animal and Droz notice what he's doing. They go over to the Titantron. They get counted out. And we come back, and Animal and Paul Ellering are trying to talk him down. Ellering tells a personal story about Hawk's mother. This is hard to watch. Hawk is blaming everybody on the floor trying to save him. Droz, of all people, tries to climb up the scaffolding, which is the last person Hawk wants to see, according to everybody involved. Animal refers to Hawk as Mike, which make it seem like a shoot. Next thing we know, Droz gives Hawk a pat on the chest, and Hawk falls off the back of the Titantron. And Jim Ross does a lot of the quiet, serious talk to sell it as a shoot. And we return from commercial. Animals into the fall. He's freaking out, holding on to Paul Ellering, and they show an ambulance. This is the culmination of all that bullshit they were doing with the drinking and showing up drunk. Horrible, horrible stuff. This ages so poorly. Can't say enough bad things about this. It has no payoff. As
nothing. Absolutely
bad.
nothing.
There's not. So we have Sable, the new WWF Women's Champion. She gets in the ring. She doesn't have the championship belt, but Michael Cole's in the ring. He's holding the title in his hand. She said, I dedicate the championship to all of my fans. Shane interrupts to say the fans didn't make Sable. Mr. McMahon made her. Shane mentions the unbelievable investment that everything has done since the 3 years and how he took another beautiful face and made her a star. Sable gets on the mic and says, I work hard and I wasn't given anything. Shane basically calls her all these names you can think of. Sable says something about the only women he knows are the only women he can buy, and she ain't for sale. And so they want to have her on the show. She just won the title. They want to make sure they show her here.
They need that Playboy money.
So we get an update from Jim Ross about Hawk is in fact breathing. So they play it again. Not that they knew what was going to happen only a year later with like Over the Edge, but they play it the same way, and it's so bad.
It's worse to watch.
The whole thing is
it's
horrible.
A very bad ill taste, and then just take the own heart thing out of the context that happens in Over the Edge. I mean, it's so in poor taste. And then the way they're selling it, like they make it seem as real as possible. And this is the shit you could want to forget about from the Attitude Era easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
So before we get to our main event, we catch Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, and Commissioner Slaughter are there in the back wearing helmets and shoulder pads, and they're heading to the boiler and looking for Mankind. Slaughter's wearing his army helmet, and Mankind starts beating the crap out of all of them with various pipes. So Vince McMahon and his corporate entourage, they get beat up. So,
and then memorably, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. I mean, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe are all funny. I mean, these guys, they shine when they're on the screen.
Yeah, and I'm giving Sarge so much credit, man. I forgot how fucking good of a talent he was until we started doing this. And this is one of those spots where you're like, God, good job, dude. Like I thought you were past your prime. He's he's ready to roll. And Foley does such a good job, like partnering off of his energy. Like it's so awesome, man.
So we lead into the main event, but first we get Vince McMahon and the whole entourage coming out before, and Vince gets on the mic and he says he's happy about everything that's going on, but I'm not happy about the championship match happening, and he can't believe Steve Austin would get the help of legal eagles to do his dirty work. The fans start chanting asshole towards him, and he said last night was as close to Austin would ever get to the WWF title again, and Vince makes sure to tell him that this is in fact Austin's final shot, so he better make the most of it, and he introduces The Rock. Match gets off to a hot start. We know we're not going to get a clean finish, going into this, but at the same time, the fans are super pumped for seeing Austin. Austin has all the energy in the world. He's pounding Rock in the corner, taking him to task. Crowd is so hot. They take this next level, and everything they do is just taken to the next level because of this crowd. So we get a lot of shenanigans after. The match only goes 6 minutes, but things start to unpack a little bit when we get the involvement of Mankind and Vince McMahon. Ken Shamrock is standing between Mankind and Vince, and Bossman holds him up. Shamrock lays in punches. Austin fights out for a second, a chin lock, wins a slugfest, and both guys try their finishers. Austin hits the stunner. We think it's over. Shamrock pulls Earl Hebner out. Austin slams Shamrock in the announce table, and then when things start to get crazy, Paul Bearer and Taker walk down to ringside carrying a shovel. Austin gets back in, gets the ref back. He tries to hit the shovel on Taker and also tries to hit The Rock. And then DQ finish, 6 minutes, and then Taker rears back for another shot with the shovel. Paul Bearer manages to stop him. Vince McMahon doesn't seem to know what's going on. So he's like, my corporate guys are supposed to be the guys helping. Taker's the guy who eventually bailed me out. Whereas Kane, we don't know. Rock is champion. Steve Austin gets to win via DQ. Ken Shamrock's part of the corporation. Chaos as Raw goes off the air. Goddamn.
Yeah,
great
goddamn
Raw.
hell.
Cut the fucking Hawk thing out, and it's a perfect show. But
yeah,
regret. I wouldn't be opposed to just cutting it off a Peacock, dude. Like I would just get rid of it. It's horrible.
Knowing what happened, like the Animal Hawk in the long run, too. Like, yeah, please, like, what the fuck, man? What do we do? Nobody needs to see that again. Draws ain't around. Draws don't give a fuck if that's going to be on the peak. That's not his shining moment either. You know what I mean? Like, just get rid of it completely.
It's bad.
While we're doing shit,
It's bad. But let's get to the chaser. Talk about our favorite part of these 3 episodes: the 2 Raws and Survivor Series Deadly Games.
Oh hell yeah!
The chaser.
All right, Mike Belcaster for the chaser. Every week we'll pick our favorite part of these 3 episodes we reviewed. So tell me, Mike Belcaster, favorite part out of the 2 Raws and Survivor Series. There's so much to choose from. I mean, you want to pick multiple things? Go ahead. We'll break our own rules.
It's all good. I mean, I'm going full blown Rock, Foley, and the Survivor Series. So well done. Austin, all that whole shtick, the main event guys. We'll give it to them. It's Austin. It's Rock. It's the core. It's the Stooges. Like I fell every time we do this. I fall in love with what we're doing. Like I see the shit that I made me a fan as a kid, minus the LOD shit. But like it was really, really well put together. That main event for the Survivor Series was so well put together. It was great, minus the few hiccups in between. But I love the chemistry between The Rock, Vince, Shane, Foley, Austin. Like it's so much buildup. So great. And I will give kudos to Rock and Shamrock in the semifinals with the baton shot, like just beautifully done. I loved it, man. Rock is obviously the MVP this week, but kudos all across the board for everybody. I had a blast.
Completely agree. I mean, just Control C, Control V, everything you said there. I think it was perfectly said. How can you not choose that final story that gets told where The Rock is the champion and he's the corporate champion? It's not done the way we thought. And as smart as we think we were watching and reading all the tea leaves, it didn't happen the way we did. And I think looking back, it was done very well. And I think everyone benefited from it. The only thing I would say is, like you said before, I think having Shamrock involved in the corporation so soon cut his knees out because he never got close to the main event again. Like he was taken away from the title because he was so close to it. He was protecting the title now from The Rock. And I understand he was never probably going to win it once it was on the Rock. It was going to volley between Rock and Austin for the remainder of time, as long as the two of them could do it. But yeah, man, it just feels a little bit, as time went on, Shamrock feels like a missed opportunity, but Rock and Austin were just undeniable. How many times in history of wrestling were you going to have guys that were as hot as these two were and as popular as they were? It was, and I comparing it to sports, it's like having two franchise players at the same exact time. It's like having, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig on the same team. It's the murderer's row type of thing. And it's just one of those, it's going to be hard to replicate that in history. And I understand that the current landscape of WWE doesn't allow stars to become bigger than the brand. But if they ever did that, I don't know if you'll ever find two guys as natural, as charismatic, and as big as The Rock and Austin became, because you had two Mount Rushmore in the history of wrestling guys on the same roster at the same time, not to mention Triple H, Taker, Foley, guys that would be top of the card any other time. Crazy.
It's insane. Absolutely insane. In a world where there's a LeBron James and a Michael Jordan playing at the same time, both in their prime, I don't think anybody could live through that twice in their lifetime, So I'm honored to be a wrestling fan as we continue doing these things, because it makes you feel we're so lucky that we got to witness this greatness as kids and grew up with it. Like, this is beautiful and very, very well done across the board. Absolutely well done. Couldn't agree more about Shamrock, but it would have been so much better if they gave that, one pay-per-view. Give us one pay-per-view with The Rock versus Shamrock for the title. We don't care where it would have went. It would have just been happy to see it done, but I get why they did it. And we get too many players on the field for them to fucking just be doing a home run contest, right?
Yeah.
You want raw? I'll get downright nasty.
Listen, bro.
All right, Belcast, let's close the tab. We got the lights coming on the bar. We're getting ready for the weekend here. It's Friday night, and the feeling's all right. Let's close the tab and get ready for next week.
Closing the tab.
Yeah. All right, Mike Belcaster, as we get ready for next week, our next show is episode 20, believe it or not, of season 3. We're going to be covering the November 23rd Raw, the November 30th Raw, and another pay-per-view, Capital Carnage 1998. So we're getting to the tail end, as I mentioned. I think we have 3 episodes left. So strap in your seatbelts and get ready for the remainder of WWF 1998 as we get ready for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Myself, Colton at Mullet.mania are going to be covering all the greatness of Smoky Mountain Wrestling 94. But as we kind of approach the end of the show here, get in your shit. Tell me about Fig Night. What's going on in the Mike Belcaster world?
Yeah, man. We just, Tom just unboxed his Power Town brand new figures this week. Great stuff. I mean, we had Vern Gagne, we had Bruiser Brody, we had Stan Hansen. Great talent in there. They look awesome, amazing. I've not yet to pick them up myself, but I can't wait. But yeah, I'm still kind of recovering from Vegas this week, man. I got a lot going on, and it was good. Dive back into reality, try to get my shit together and get back into the tavern fold as always. But I had a blast out there. I'm just saying it now. Go check out AEW by Jazzwares all across the socials. They're posting shit all across. You'll never know where I'm going to pop up. We got lots of cool stuff. But it was an absolute blast. And as always, it's always I'm happy to come home to where I belong, right here at Shot of Nostalgia. 1998, baby.
I love it, Belcaster. And as we say goodbye to you guys, if you're around this Sunday, Brooklyn Comic-Con, come see Remarkable Wrestling. I'll be ring announcing 4 special matches. They'll be wrestling all day. I'll post the times at ACEFIELD Retro on my page at Remarkable_Wrestling. But small pop-up show having Gabriel Sky versus Anthony Gann going for the championship and 3 other great matches. So come out and say hi, Brooklyn Comic-Con, if you're there. Until next time, guys, catch you for episode 20. Make sure you subscribe to TurnbuckleTavern.com for all the love. We'll catch you guys next week for Shot Nostalgia. Peace.